Tuesday, Ukrainians celebrated the 30th anniversary of independence from the Soviet Union with a large military parade in Kiev. On August 24, 1991, Ukrainian lawmakers assembled and declared independence from the Soviet Union in the wake of the communist coup attempt on Soviet Premier Mikhail Gorbachev. Within days, the state of Ukraine was formed, and an independence referendum passed that December. 30 years of independence have left Ukraine a transformed state struggling to separate itself from its former Soviet ties, especially following the 2014 Russian invasion and illegal annexation of Crimea and Donbass. Current President Volodymyr Zelensky has insisted that NATO commit to membership for Ukraine in the face of increased Russian aggression. Ukrainian politicians now wonder if Kiev should rethink its 1994 nuclear disarmament in light of ongoing threats from Russia. In the face of uncertainty over the security and sovereignty of their borders, Ukrainians today nevertheless celebrate 30 years of freedom, stability, and independent rule as President Zelensky looks for ways to guarantee 30 more with accession to NATO, weapons and intelligence guarantees from the United States, and economic backing from the European Union. Iraq hosted a meeting of regional leaders in Baghdad on Friday in a bid to de-escalate recent regional tensions. In a move that may signal the emergence of a new Middle East power broker, recently elected Iraqi Prime Minister Mustafa al-Kadhimi convened the meeting to mediate bilateral dialogues, in particular those between the Gulf states and Iran. Officials say the meeting may work towards mending Saudi-Iranian relations, which were severed in 2016. The summit also discussed the war in Yemen, Lebanon's economic woes, and the crisis in Afghanistan. Although members of the G20 were invited to observe, French President Emmanuel Macron was the only non-regional attendee. Turkey's President Erdogan and Iran's new President Raisi were in attendance, as well as other regional leaders. Syria's Bashar al-Assad was a notable exception. The summit marks a step towards cooperative regionalism at the helm of Kadhimi's leadership, which is seeking to strengthen Iraq's diplomatic power. In the long term, expect the new prime minister to remain focused on improving bilateral relations with regional powers like Jordan, the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and Turkey, and perhaps most importantly, Iran. Should Kadhimi succeed, Iraq will have the potential to carve out an influential role in regional relations. In a deadly terror attack last Thursday, 13 United States service members and over 150 Afghan civilians lost their lives when two explosions went off near Hamid Karzai International Airport in Kabul. The area surrounding the airport has been a flashpoint of conflict between U.S. forces, the Taliban, and local Afghans since Kabul fell to the Taliban on August 15th. Thursday's attacks came as thousands were still pouring in from across the country in hopes of joining the 104,000 civilians that have already fled the country through the US-led airlift. An Islamic State affiliate in Afghanistan, known as ISIS-K, claimed responsibility for the suicide bombings, with the Taliban denying any involvement and vowing to launch an investigation into the incident. US President Joe Biden has since come out strongly condemning the attacks.
We will not forgive. We will not forget. We will hunt you down and make you pay. I will defend our interests and our people with every measure at my command.
And on Saturday, the US retaliated by launching an airstrike against the extremist group. However, Biden maintained his opposition to any large-scale military operation. Expect the international community to move quickly to address the emerging terrorist threat, with UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres calling for an emergency meeting of the Permanent Security Council members this Monday. Biden insisted that the military withdrawal would continue in line with the August 31st deadline, provided every American has been evacuated. However, with the Taliban beginning to restrict access to the airport, and an unclear picture of how many more at-risk civilians need to be evacuated, it is increasingly unlikely that the US will be able to meet this timeline.